let's jump into it. So I think for the most part, people understand, what investing in real estate is. Obviously, you're diversifying your investment portfolio, if you will. Most of us will invest in stocks through mutual funds, via tax shelters like your RSP or your TFSA. If you've hit your limits, you might have some other investments on the side there, which you are exposed to capital gains on, etc. But real estate investing, it's not necessarily an alternative to investing in stocks or your other traditional forms of investment and wealth growth. I think it's a complement to it. It's an alternative to a degree in that it's a diversification, if you will, right? So for me, when I was looking into getting in real estate a long time ago, investing into real estate, I didn't trust the stock market. I didn't trust financial advisors. That whole industry is heavy on MERs and other types of fees, et cetera. So I just generally went towards real estate. That being said, now I definitely have more in stocks, et cetera, as well, to again diversify. But let's just kind of talk, kind of high level here about the advantages and of real estate as opposed to stocks, just as a comparison. Not to say that one's better than the other. Again, not to kick a dead horse there, but I think one of the biggest benefits of real estate investing is the leverage that you get. So if we kind of talk just high level numbers and just kind of keep it nice and simple, let's just say as an example, you have, I apologize, working from home here. That's going to happen more often than you probably want to. Tucker, enough. Sorry about that. So like I said, let's just say you've got $100,000 to invest, right? Whether you're going to go put it in the stock market or you're going to put it into some real estate. The greatest thing about investing in real estate, like I said, is the leverage. So when you buy an investment property, you need to put down 20%, right? So you have to have 20% skin in the game. So if I've got $100,000 and I want to go put it in the stock market and I get and my stocks go up by 5%, then naturally that math works out to I'm going to make $5,000. Okay. So I've made $5,000 on my 100,000, 5%. Let's just say by example, if you were to go ahead and you were to purchase an investment property, I would use 20% down. I'd use my $100,000. That would allow me to buy a $500,000 property. Now, again, let's just say that the stock market goes up by 5%. I'm not making 5% on my 100,000. I'm making 5% on the 500,000. So 5% of 500,000 is actually 25,000. And if you then say, well, I only put $100,000 in as an initial investment, that $25,000 is a return on my $100,000, which of course translates out to a 25% return on investment. So you can see the power just in that simple example, the power of leverage when it comes to investing in real estate. You get the entire gain on the whole property value versus just the gain on your initial investment, right? So, I think that I use the 5% mark because I think that's pretty fair in, what your typical return on investment might be in the stock market for the most part. And I think it's also pretty fair to say that your standard price growth in a healthy real estate market would generally be 5%. Now, you're going to have some anomalies. You're going to have some years that pull back a little bit. We saw that in the backside of 2017. But the leading up to 2017, we saw 2016, we saw a 16% price growth. And then at the beginning stages of 2017, we saw a 20% price growth. This year, again, another crazy year. Milton, as an example, just looking at the detached segment of Milton specifically, we're up 17%. So the average sales price in Milton for the month of January versus the month of September so far, the average has been a price growth of 17%. If I look at other markets kind of around the West GTA, 22% in Hamilton as a whole, not just in the detached market, and Kitchener is up 11% and Cambridge is up 24%. You can imagine what your return on investment would be in those situations. I don't want to use that as an expectation because Lord knows you're never, you shouldn't go in expecting that. So if you were to look at like the 4 to 5%, I generally use kind of 5%, and sometimes I use 4% if I want to be just ultra conservative. Your return on investment is substantially higher. Okay. One of the other benefits of real estate is, so we just talked about appreciation naturally, but one of the other benefits of let me just say here. Sorry, I'm looking at the comments here. I am kind of relatively new to the newest the new updates as far as Facebook Live goes. I do want to make sure that I am able to see any comments, etc., if they are coming through. So I'm just going to. Okay, I'm going to try. I did something. Hopefully it was good. Anyway, so one of the other benefits of real estate investing versus other types of investment is multiple streams of income. So like I said, we talked about appreciation. Okay, so that's definitely one segment of your stream of income. You also, if done properly, you'll get cash flow. Okay, so cash flow is the difference between what it costs you to carry the property. So mortgage, taxes, insurance, condo fees if that's applicable, etc., versus what your monthly rent is. So let's just say, as an example, it costs you, $1,850 a month to carry a property, and you get $2,000 a month on the property in rent. Well, then your cash flow is $150 a month. Sorry, my thoughts were already going on to my next point there. So you're getting $150 a month in cash flow on top of your 5% appreciation a year. In addition to that, your mortgage is being paid down. So if when you make your mortgage payment, obviously your part of it goes to principal, part of it goes to interest. The principal part pays down your mortgage. Now, of course, that's not out of pocket for you. Excuse me. Your tenants are paying for that, right? They're paying it through the rent. So somebody else is paying down your mortgage. So every year your mortgage goes down a little bit more. And then, of course, there's also, depending on your personal situation, you have tax benefits of it. Now, I'm not going to claim to be a tax expert. And of course, everybody's situation is different. So I would suggest, if you're looking at real estate, talk to your accountant about the tax benefits. But you can depreciate the real estate every year. So which means that you would basically say, okay, well, I bought a property for $500,000 and I had to put X account of maintenance into it, et cetera. And now, the property has gone down in value. Now it's only worth, say, $490 as an example. Keep in mind that we're not talking about what market value is, because the land will appreciate, et cetera. But the way that real estate works is that land appreciates, the improvement on the land actually depreciates, right? As you can probably imagine, if you built a home today, in 100 years, if you didn't touch it, right, you did absolutely nothing to it, it would probably be falling down. Well, it would have been falling down probably in 50 years, right? But that's the idea, right? So the property will depreciate. The improvement on the property will depreciate, even though the land is appreciating. So from a tax benefit, you can depreciate the property. So if I can say, I lost $10,000 this year on my property by depreciating it, you can get a tax write-off, and it's called capital cost allowance, right? Now, keep in mind that has to be recaptured later on in the sale, and this is why it's very much, when you sell the property, it's very much important for you to talk to your accountant as far as, the benefits of doing that, whether it works for you or not, right? So, but just know that is on the table. It could work for you depending on what your tax bracket is. If you're a high income earner now, but you plan on holding it for 25 years and then your retirement, maybe it makes more sense to it's kind of more of a tax deferral system, right? So just keep that in mind. So multiple streams of income. So we've got appreciation, we've got cash flow, mortgage pay down, and in some cases, the tax incentive through depreciation. So, now we know that, real estate is a great vehicle to put your money into. But everyone says, okay, where do I buy, right? Now, right now, it almost seems like you could buy anywhere, anything, anywhere, and it's going to go up in value. And to a degree, that's almost the case, certainly in Southern Ontario. But, more specifically, if you want to look for areas that will outperform other areas, as best as you can. But then also, if and when a turn down does happen, because they are inevitable, whether it's a slowing, right? Rather instead of going like this, it kind of goes like this, or it plateaus, or if it does come down a little bit, like we saw in 2017, right? The property values came back gave back about 10%. So while they went up 20%, they came back 10%, right? So, those do happen from time to time, right? So, but if you're buying in areas that are, kind of the better areas, if you will have better price appreciation and you will have less price declines in a down market, right? So you want to be looking for areas that are increasing in population higher than the provincial average. Areas that are closer to transportation. So whether that's whether that's like the 407 improvements, the 401 widening just to kind of make life easier. Again, 410 going up further north, LRTs, GO train expansion, et cetera, right? So areas where you can get on and off and commute very easily. If you ask yourself, or you've asked, one of your friends or family members, how far is it to work? Chances are they're going to say half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever the case may be. But the question was not how long does it take you to get to work? The question was how far is it to work? But the thing is that the way our minds work is we work in time, right? How long does it take us to work, to go to work? So somebody may very well be totally fine driving 100 kilometers if it takes them, 50 minutes. But somebody would not be okay, driving, I don't know, 25 kilometers if it took them 50 minutes, right? Because they don't want to be sitting in traffic all the time, right? So we measure our commute in hours, minutes, et cetera. So it's all part of our day. So if you're going to be buying in an area that is closer to transportation improvements, those areas will generally appreciate a little bit better than others. Similarly, job growth, right? So again, the job growth is higher, or there's a lot of job growth. You look for areas and companies that are that are improving and expanding, building another warehouse or another factory or whatever the case may be. Schools, universities, et cetera, growing. Those all provide good high paying jobs. So you want to be in areas that there's a lot of job growth. And then if I could kind of narrow it down even further, I would say go to areas that are gentrifying, right? And gentrification is where a bad area that's just been neglected, is derelict, there's improvement happening, right? So, you're looking for areas that people are putting money back into the houses, right? If you're driving around an area and there's a lot of dumpsters on the front lawn and a lot of construction going on and new roofs and new front decks and new siding and fascia, and there's just improvements going on everywhere, and not even just in the houses, but in the kind of the commercial areas, right? So the downtown areas, the storefronts are improving, and the town or the city is improving the signage, and it looks nicer, and they're improving the lamps and like I said, the street signs and all that kind of stuff. When the area is it's improving, you want to ride that wave, right? So when you can kind of get in at the ground floor or on the way up, when you can see shovels are in the ground, this is happening, I'm going to get in now, and that there's still a long way to go, right? So those would be some of the areas that you want to be looking at as far as helping you to pick areas to invest in. Now, I would stress that there's a lot of big mistakes that investors or first-time investors make, and I would say, one of the biggest things would be patient, right? Real estate investing is not a get-rich-quick scheme, right? While there's a ton of wealth that is created through real estate investing, it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in a year. It doesn't, sometimes doesn't even happen in 5 years, right? It's a long-term thing. So when you're, buying an investment property, think about RRSP kind of thing, right? You think about this is my retirement. When Lisa and I bought our first investment property on our own, we decided at that point that was going to be our kids' education fund, right? Because again, I looked at the markets and I said, where am I going to get a good return on investment for in a 15-year period, right? When our kids were younger, I figured they got 15 years before they were going to have to go to university or college, and I looked at inflation for one, and then I looked at what the cost of universities and secondary, post-secondary school was going up, and it was like, I can't remember at the time. I think it was going up like 15% a year, and this is when like everything was blowing up. It was in the media, et cetera. And I said, well, if that trend continues, how much is it going to cost my kids to go to university in 15 years? And then what is my dollar going to be worth, and how much do I need to save? And I just didn't see how I was going to be able to save for 3 kids, so I bought an investment property. And I felt, for those of you that are in the Milton area, you can probably appreciate this, but I felt that when I bought this townhouse for $330, that in 15 years, if I did, again, I was talking earlier about a 4% appreciation, again, conservative, modest, a 4% appreciation, that sometime by the time they went to go to university, that the townhouse would be for $500,000. And I said to myself, who in their right mind is going to pay $500,000 for a 2-bedroom townhouse, or for a 2-story townhouse in Milton? It was a 3-bedroom, right? 1,300 square feet. And I couldn't get my head around that. Who's going to spend 500 grand for a townhouse? Well, as we all know, like if I could say, hey, I'll sell you a townhouse for 500 grand, everybody would be like, clamoring over each other to get it. So I'm well beyond that, of course. But that, the idea there is that it was a long-term decision. It was something that we were going to do in 15 years, right? And I would say, again, I'd stress that real estate investing is it's a slow go, just nice and steady. And if you do it right, you don't even think about it. It just kind of happens on its own, right? The other thing that I would say that is a mistake that people make is that they try to buy an investment property as close to them as possible. And if they can't, they say, well, it's too expensive, I can't buy it. It doesn't make sense. And I would say that, okay, 2 thoughts. Number one is, you wouldn't look at the stock market and say, well, what companies are in my town only? And I'm only going to invest in companies that are in my town. Of course, you wouldn't do that. You would say, what are the best growth companies? What has the highest potential? Where's the momentum going in the trends, et cetera, and who's in that space, right? You're going to look for a good return on investment. The same thing should apply to your real estate investment portfolio. You should be looking at areas that are going to improve and that's going to make your money work the hardest, right? So rather than trying to say, I only want to buy properties that are close to me because it's easy and convenient, I would say buy a property where it makes sense to do it. Further to that, second mistake that people often make would be that they are looking for the A++ property, and they will overlook the A property, or they'll overlook the B+ property, and they'll say that's not good enough, right? As the old adage, it's not timing the market, it's time in the market, right? And I think that same thing would apply to real estate, right? Don't run around looking for the deal, like just like the golden deal, like the once in a lifetime opportunity, and look and pass over all these other great opportunities, right? Are you really going to say in 15 years that, I could have had that property instead of this property, that, when you're retiring and life is great, are you going to say, well, I probably could have made an extra 25,000, right? You're not, right? You're gonna just go along, find good properties, and rinse and repeat. And I know a number of people that have 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 properties, and it's just a system, right? It's just like, this is what I do, right? Sidebar here, it's not in my notes, but it just jumped in my mind. Again, one of the great things about just slow and methodical is that when the property appreciates in value and you have equity in there, you now no longer have to go and look for equity, right? That's one of the biggest problems with real estate investors is they run out of capital. They run out of their own money. They've tapped their kind of resources. So they oftentimes will go and look for joint venture partners. But one of the things that's available to them is, as the properties appreciate in value, you can refinance them, take that money out, and go and buy another property with that property, right? So now your first property over time becomes 2 properties, and those appreciate in value, and then you refinance them, and those become 4 properties, and you refinance those, and they become 16 properties, right? Like that's like how it can just grow like that, right? So, I don't know why I want to go on that tangent there, but I wanted to touch on the fact that it's a slow, methodical process, and you just Just let it go over time. Okay. The next thing I would say is making sure that you have spare money on the side, right? So we call that our sleep at night fund, right? And the idea is again, another mistake that investors will make, especially first time investors, is they're so afraid to have to carry a property, right? They're afraid to have to have a mortgage payment come out without someone in the rental, right? Without somebody paying for it. When we buy our properties, I have 3 months to find the right tenant, because finding the right tenant will make life so easy. They will care for the property. They will pay on time. They'll let you know if there's anything wrong with the property, rather than just leaving it and saying, well, it's not my property, I don't really care about it, right? And then, months will go by and it's like, oh, geez, my rent checks have been going in, but maybe I should check in with them and just see how things are going. Rather than problem, you're not paying your rent, stuff's broken, blah, 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 right? Oh, I'm leaving early, all that kind of stuff, right? So, just be super picky with your tenants, and you're gonna meet some really nice people that sound really great, but use your gut and lean on professionals in the industry, and that's real estate agents or property management companies, etc. You want to make sure that you're looking at their job letters, their credit score, especially their credit, and not even just their credit score, but their credit report, right? I ask for the full credit report, because I want to know the history of, what type of people they are. Do they pay their stuff on time? Because if it's like late payment, default, late payment, there's probably a pretty good chance that we're going to run into some problems with them. Sorry, just need to wet the whistle a little bit. So, be picky with them, right? So like I said, and then follow up with their what are they trying to say? Their referrals, right? Or what's the word I'm looking for? Anyways, the people that are going to recommend them and say and speak on their behalf, right? Lisa and I came really close to renting one of our investment properties to a couple that sounded really good on paper. And there was a little, kind of maybe a bit of a hiccup, a speed bump, so to speak. And we asked the question, and the answer made sense, right? And then we followed up with some of the people that they had put down as these referral people or recommendations, or whatever I'm trying to say. And references, that's the word. I knew I was going to get it. So look for the references, right? So we called some of the references, and the dude put down his own phone number as a reference. So we called it, and then, the guy, the applicant, answers, and we're like, I'm looking for so-and-so. It's like, I don't know, this is who I am. Anyways, and then all of a sudden it just, like, the whole story fell apart. So do your due diligence, right? Like, go and research and ask questions and be aggressive with that, because these people are going to be living in your property. And like I said, if you're quick to just get somebody in there because you don't want to have to carry the mortgage for a couple of months, even, that can come back and bite you, and it can cost you way more than a month or two's payments, right? So, I would say, like, have a little bit of reserve fund on the side, and then that way it's just no problems. Further to that, have that money on the side just in case something happens, because while you may do, you do a home inspection and all that kind of stuff ahead of time, and everything seems to be working properly, but a year or two goes by, and all of a sudden, the furnace goes, or the AC, or there ends up being a windstorm, and the shingles are blowing off, and you got a bit of a roof leak or something like that. That stuff happens, right? On our properties, I've had to replace a number of taps, like the cartridges in the wall. So I actually had to cut a hole in the back side of the drywall and change out the plumbing, the cartridge on the inside, because the tap just kept going. Even if it was turned off, it just kept going. I've had to do that twice. Again, a bunch of other kind of problems like that. Service the furnaces, etc. Right. So there's a couple of things that have had to go. But really, if I could guess on the multiple properties that we have, I'd say that maybe I've spent around maybe $2,000 in 5 years on all of our properties, right? But just having that money there aside is just something you don't have to think about. It's not like, oh my God, where am I going to get this money from? It's just It's just your sleep at night fund that comes out of that, right? Nice and easy. No problems whatsoever. It also just helps you with any vacancies, right? Sometimes tenants move out. Like we had some tenants that they're in a 1-year lease, and after 9 months they said, I got a health issue, I got to move, right? So while I could have been a jerk about it and said, no, you owe me all this money, I'm like, well, it is what it is. And so we took a month's loss and moved on, right? And again, so 1 month's loss on a property as far as rent goes, that might be, it costs $1,300, I think, or something like that to carry the property. That pales in comparison to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% appreciation, right? So I'm not going to get rid of the property because I had to pay $1,300 to carry a property for a month. The return on investment is just massive, right? We have again, sidebar here. We're selling one of our properties in Kitchener coming up, and I went back and I did the ROI on it, and it's 50% a year that we've made on that property, right? So I'm not gonna shake a stick at 50% return on investment per year because I had to fix the furnace, and it cost me a $400 service fee or something like that, right? Said that. Okay, pick with the tenants. So again, when time comes to sell, here's another benefit of, and this is just investing in general, I suppose, but it's just, again, it's just good to know that when you sell the property, your taxes that you pay on the gains is taxed at capital gains. Now, if you're not familiar with capital gains, sometimes people think that it's 50% taxes. It's not. You're not paying 50% taxes. You're paying taxes on 50% of the gain. So if I made $100,000 on the property when I sold it, right? I bought it for 5, sold it for 6. It's $100,000 gain. I would take 50% of that. So I would add $50,000, like half of the 100,000. I'd add $50,000 to my income for the year. And then whatever your tax bracket is, worst case scenario, you're in the highest tax bracket. So you pay 50%, you pay $25,000. So, worst case scenario on $100,000, you pay $25,000 in taxes. You're only paying 25% taxes max, right? So that's, again, one of the benefits of the real estate when you're selling it, right? Is the income that the gain that you get is not taxed the same way that your income is, of course. Sorry, just looking at my notes here to make sure that I don't forget anything. So again, tax questions, right? Definitely consult your accountant and all that kind of stuff, because I'm not an accountant, but ask all that kind of stuff. You're probably gonna be pleasantly surprised with the outcome. Again, sorry, I'm going to go back on the tenant thing. Again, as far as tenants go and picking the tenants, keep in mind that that's what I was going to say. Sorry for the back and forth here. I'm trying to remember my thoughts as I was kind of making notes. But when time does come to sell, I would also recommend, and this is just me, you do whatever you want to do, but I would recommend waiting until your tenants move out. Again, carrying the property vacant for a month or two, but it allows you to do multiple things. It allows you to show the property whenever you want, because tenants don't care, right? As far as you selling your property and getting a great return on investment, they don't care, right? It's not them. There's no gain in it for them. If anything, it's just an inconvenience that people are coming through the house all the time. So you're going to have people that they're going to non-confirm showings. They're going to be messy. They're going to leave food everywhere. They've got pets potentially. Like, again, I didn't talk about pets, but for me, I allow dogs that are friendly. I don't allow cats because cats can wreck stuff. I know you think dogs can wreck stuff, but I laminate, that kind of stuff. Laminate and tile, dogs can't wreck it. But if they have pets or anyways, all kinds of stuff, right? So, landscaping stuff outside, the garbage, the recycle, all that kind of stuff, right? So when the tenants are gone, you can go in there and you can give it a fresh paint. You can repair any small damages that are just inevitable wear. You can landscape it, clean it up, make sure the lawn is mowed properly. As the wind goes around and there's garbage that kind of blows up, the bags blow up into your bushes and all that kind of stuff. It's nice and clean. You can stage it, which is super important. And you can make it look like a nice home, right? And again, a lot of tenants, they'll move in and they bring all their stuff with them. So sometimes a place can feel small. And I can all but guarantee you that if you sell a house vacant but staged, right, without a tenant in it versus with the tenant, you're going to get more. You're going to sell it for way more than the loss that you'd take for carrying it for a few months while it was vacant. So that would be my other tip for you. Yeah, okay. So then moving along here, let's talk about the types of investment properties or types of investments that there are, right? I think that most of us think of investment properties, but maybe as a single family home, and that may or may not be the case, right? But that's what all of ours are single family homes. So again, townhouse, one family lives in it, a detached house, a condo, apartment, whatever the case may be, single family home. Then you can get into like a duplex, right? Where you can get into, a tenant on top and then tenant in the basement, right? Or they could be side by sides, but it's usually top and bottom is most common. Same thing, triplexes, fourplexes. If you're buying, you're gonna find that more often in like some of the like Hamilton or parts of Kitchener and Cambridge. Some of like the old big Victorian houses that were like 3,500 square feet or 3,000 square feet, they get chopped up kind of into like top floor, middle floor, basement, or any kind of configuration like that. Where you've got multiple people living in there, so multifamily, duplexes, fourplexes, triplexes, etc. But then you can get into like multifamily, like apartment buildings, purpose-built buildings, right? Where you can have anywhere generally from like a sixplex to, I don't know, like 200plex, right? Where it's purpose-built, it's kind of more apartment style, right? Student rentals are very common. I would talking about student rentals right now. We haven't done like a lot of student rentals in quite some time. I find that the way that the prices have gone, like unless you're going to be buying down in like London or something like that, maybe just a little bit further out where you don't have that GTA or GTHA price pressure. I think a lot of people are maybe I just say shying away. But for me, if I look at a student rental, it used to be a time where you could buy a student rental and you could buy the student rental, put students in it, and almost literally get like $1,500 a month positive cash flow. Those days are gone, right? Nowadays, it's basically like you're going to do a student rental and it's going to cost you pretty much the same amount. Sorry, I shouldn't say it's going to cost you. The cash flow that you're going to get off it is going to be about the same amount as if you buy a single family home, right? You don't really get that big extra boost the way that real estate prices have gone and rental prices have gone. So for me, I'm just like, students are tough. Students are tough on your properties. They're kids, right? Can we remind ourselves that now, like when you and I went to school, when you were going to university, at least you were like 19. A lot of these kids are now like 17, right? So they're moving out, they're in a house by themselves and they're 17 and there's 4 or 5 of them in there and they're supposed to keep a house. They're pretty tough on it, right? So I kind of stay away from that unless you're going to go down to like London area where you can get that rental boost that kind of makes it worth your while. And then flips. So you can do like a hardcore flip where you're going into a derelict home and you're buying it and you're renovating it and you're selling it right away. Or another way of doing that is do the same thing. Go in, renovate it, make it pretty and nice, but hold it, right? So instead of flipping it for an instant cash, you can hold on to it and rent it for substantially higher than market, especially for the area if the area just needs to be gentrified. Furthermore, you can actually renovate it into like a duplex, right? So if you buy, I don't know, let's just say either it's a rundown home or it's like Nana's home, hasn't been touched since 1951, right? And it's got a nice big full basement and all that kind of stuff. You can go in there, buy Nana's house, renovate it, make it super pretty, put a legal basement apartment into it, and now you've got multiple streams of income. You got cash flow on the front, you got rental on the top, rental on the bottom. Then you can refinance the property because now it's a legal duplex. It's worth more. Your bank's going to give you more for it. Your cash flow's there to cover your expenses on it, and then you can take your money out and go and do it again, right? So there's that style as well. And if I can just wrap up here with my last kind of points as far as investments go, and types of properties, excuse me. would be like resale versus pre-construction. There's a ton of pre-construction. We see the condo towers going up all over the place, everywhere. Real estate agents run around trying to get people to buy these pre-constructions, and they're good. They're not bad. Let's say that. Pros and cons. Okay, so let's just say from a resale's perspective, the nice thing about buying a resale home versus a pre-construction would be the ability to actually inspect the house, right? See the finishes as they are, know the actual sizes of the house, etc. When you buy off of a floor plan, there's actually a rule in development that says that the builder can change the size of the unit by up to 5% without having to tell you about it. And that's because when they design the property, when they design the building, they do everything, but then they have to do pre-sales before they're able to get their financing. Then once they get financing, then they can go to the city and get all their final approvals. But if in the later stages, if they've already sold, say, 50 or 60% of the units, in the later stages, if the city comes along and says, I need this change, you need this change, you need a bigger this, you need a bigger that, all of a sudden your unit is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, because they had to I don't know, make the elevator shaft bigger or larger ductwork, or that was too close, so they have to change something. And all of a sudden your unit is 5% smaller than when you bought it. They don't have to tell you that, right? On a pre-construction form, a lot of the times they will give you a reference piece as a separate note of what the size of the unit is. But in the actual agreement of purchase and sale, there is no reference to the actual dimensions of the unit. Whereby, if there's no reference to the actual size of the unit, they could theoretically change it by whatever they want beyond the 5%, right? Because there's no reference in the actual agreement. So just little things like that. You can rent it out immediately. As soon as you get it, bam, sign along, gone. It's rented. If you're buying Nana's house, you can renovate it, you can make it nicer, you can improve it. You could duplex it, etc. You can make stuff to improve the value of the property and the cash flow that you're getting out of it. And then if you were to flip on the other side and say kind of the pros and cons of pre-construction, is that you can put your down payment down in stages. So if you buy a resale home, it's deposit $10,000 as an example, or $20,000 or $30,000 depending on what price point you're buying at right now. And then as soon as you close, you got to come up with the rest of that 20% down, right? So if you're buying a $500,000 property, you got to come up with $100,000. In a pre-construction, because the closing is so long, 18 months to 2 years sometimes, oftentimes it'll be like, 5% on signing, 5% later on, blah, blah, blah. And it might take 2 years for you have to accumulate the full 20%. And in some cases, the builder will actually only require you to put maybe 10 to 15% down until you close 2 years later, which means that you can put that, you don't have to come up with that amount of cash flow and capital all up front right away. Further to that, the benefit of it is that the unit or whatever you're buying, generally speaking, will appreciate before you've even owned it, right? So you buy pre-construction. And if I just, again, make up numbers right now, if I were to say you buy a $500,000 new build today and it doesn't close for 2 years, then you are getting, and you get 5% appreciation. In 2 years' time, it's worth $550, but you didn't even really own it yet. It's just worth $550, right? So, how does that translate into return on investment? If you only had to put 10% down from the builder, or even if you had to put 20% down, you're getting that appreciation without having to really do anything. It's just money kind of sitting on this fund of forced savings, kind of, so to speak, right? That can work for some people, plus or minus, right? And then you can also pick the finishes, right? So if you're going in, you've got that, they bring you over to their sales center and here's our designs and here's all that kind of stuff that we want to sell to you, all your finishes. You get to pick them. You get to decide which finishes are going to be best in this kitchen or in this unit. Now, keep in mind that the finishes that the builder sells you are substantially more than you're going to get. You're going to pay afterwards, right? That's their profit margin, right? That's where they really make their money is upselling you on all their finishes and their packages and everything like that. And they do that by saying, well, you're gonna, this carpet's going in anyways, right? You're paying for the carpet. And so sometimes you justify by saying, well, it'll just be easier to do it now. And sometimes that's true. Like big ticket items, like getting, the stairs and the railings and all that kind of stuff, matching the floors and stained, that's a heck of a lot easier and just simpler to get done through the builder. Same with cabinetry, right? Unless it's going to be like super crap cheap, cabinetry, if it's a condo, you might want to go with that. But the flooring, any extra finishes, kind of fireplaces and all that kind of stuff, like sometimes that's just easier to be done after the fact, right? So anyways, that's my presentation. I'm hoping that there were no comments that I missed. And it would be nice if there was comments and questions and all that kind of stuff. If there wasn't, that's totally fine. If there was, I didn't see any of them, and I don't know where I would see them. So anyways, I'm going to wrap this one up here. I've been talking for 42 minutes straight. If you have any questions now, go ahead and shoot them over. I haven't seen any come through, so I'm hoping that I'm not missing anything. If you have any questions after the fact, if you're watching this later, you didn't get to watch it all, you're going to watch it again later. If you're watching it after the fact tonight or tomorrow or in the next couple of days, and you do have questions, feel free to message us at Roach Friendly Real Estate. We'll get back to you. You can email us at homes@itsfamily.ca as well. Or give us a shout if you want to have just a discussion and have a little bit of a back and forth. That's cool too. 289-270-1719. But anyways, I'm gonna wrap this up. Hope that everything is good with everybody. If that all made sense, it wasn't too much. I know I did kind of like just give a whole bunch all at once. But again, I'll say thank you very much for tuning in. I did see a whole bunch of people popping on. That was awesome. And I'll talk to you guys again soon, hopefully.